An idea floated by President Donald Trump at a rally in Aurora, Colorado is now becoming reality. His administration is fast-tracking deportations without due process for people the administration claims are Venezuelan gang members. Today, the administration openly defied a federal judge who ordered the process be stopped until it can be reviewed. Trump signed a proclamation late Friday invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which allows the U.S. to deport certain foreigners during a time of war. Now, the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela. Trump's order targets people that the administration says are affiliated with Tren de Aragua, the gang central to his exaggerated claims that Aurora has been conquered. The Trump administration has been signaling for a while that it will begin defying the rule of law when judges decide against the president's orders. Over the weekend, a federal judge blocked the deportations that were happening without due process. Today, the White House challenged whether they really had to obey the judge's order because it was verbal, not written. An administration attorney stonewalled the judge's questions in court. And Border czar Tom Homan said on Fox News he doesn't care what the judges think.
Doesn't look like you're getting support from the Democrats on this. You're going against the judges now. What's next?
Another flight every day. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
The Trump administration says it is appealing the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. If expedited deportations under the Alien Enemies Act are allowed to continue, then it's reasonable that Aurora and Colorado could become the focus. Last week, the acting administrator for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration said he believes the gang's quote-unquote command and control is here in Colorado. Latinos in our state are organizing to oppose the Trump administration's actions on immigration, and that became the focus of an annual gathering that always happens outside the state capitol, where this year our Angeline McCall talked with Latino leaders about mass deportations and Trump's effort to end birthright citizenship.
Let's remember that we are here today because we are fighting hate in this country.
Every legislative year comes with it Latino Advocacy Day at the Capitol. This year feels especially important.
Those people do not know what it's like to be us and to live in our shoes.
Behind the waves of support, worries of what's to come under the Trump administration for the next 4 years.
I've lost my brother to deportation. I've lost a father to deportation. This is the painful reality we're living in today.
When President Trump talks about mass deportations, the people here know those promises translate into a personal impact.
Sadly enough, history is repeating itself, and it breaks my heart.
The woman responsible for this chant, the one we've come to know as Yes We Can, Dolores Huerta, started her civil rights work in the 50s along Cesar Chavez to protest for farm worker rights.
Yeah, we've got to get up the courage because we know that we are going to face some hard times ahead.
Huerta is still fighting for civil rights so many decades later.
Whose house is it? All right.
Open the door! Hundreds of people marched to the state capitol with plans to lobby elected officials.
I remember when he first took office, many of my friends and their parents would not show up to school because they were scared, or they would not show up to work because they were scared that ICE would show up and take them.
Woo! The leaders of tomorrow being shaped by the ones today.
Because what you are doing here is actually an inspiration and an example of what we need to do all over the United States of America, right?
Voces Unidas en Color Latina that organize Latino Advocacy Day every year do research about some of the most important issues to the Latino community in Colorado. The last poll they released in the last 6 months shows issues like inflation and the rising cost of living as key priorities. We also know that roughly a third of Latinos consider federal immigration issues at the very top of their concerns as well.
I remember the last time that we talked about that polling, you said that Colorado's Latinos, while obviously not monolithic, moved in some different ways than Latinos around the country did in the last year.
Yeah, actually, they did. And what we saw is that we saw large percentages, for instance, of people, supporting increasing the number of immigration judges to really shorten court processing times. We also saw things like increasing legal pathways, 75% of support in that poll for legal pathways. And we know those are under attack under the Trump administration as well.
Angeline McCall, thank you very much. A little noticed action by President Trump on Friday targeted something called the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Colorado gets millions of dollars in funding each year from the IMLS for libraries, museums, similar institutions, about $3 million in 2023. That funds family literacy programs, initiatives for Spanish speakers and folks with disabilities, and support for rural libraries. And then there is localized funding for places like the Broomfield Veterans Museum, History Colorado, Denver Botanic Gardens, the Native American Library Services for the Ute Mountain Tribe. They all got funding from this IMLS in 2024. We did hear back from the Denver Botanic Gardens today, who told us they have received some of their 2025 grants from this pot, but they are still waiting, unsure if they are going to receive the rest of what they expected. Tina Peters is talking about negotiations to free her from jail. Now, typically one does not negotiate their way out of jail, but Peters and her allies are appealing to the Trump administration to squeeze Democratic Governor Jared Polis to pardon her and set her free. The former Mesa County clerk is just months into a 9-year sentence for breaching voting systems in an unsuccessful attempt to prove Trump's election rigging claims. She spoke from jail with our Spencer Soisher.
The sentence of Tina Peters is so egregious.
It's become a factor in the Colorado GOP chair election.
We need the federal government's help.
One candidate running to lead the state party is calling for President Trump to withhold federal funds from Colorado to pressure Governor Jared Polis into pardoning convicted Mesa County clerk Tina Peters.
It's just another day in paradise, Spencer.
Peters is just 6 months into her 9-year sentence and will eventually be transferred to prison.
I know there are other people out there that have reached out to Trump on my behalf.
Peters says she hasn't spoken to anyone from the Trump administration while in jail. She's sentenced for a state crime, so President Trump can't pardon her.
Polis could pardon me, and I would definitely want a full pardon.
Would you support a quid pro quo where President Trump got involved and threatened to withhold funding from Colorado in exchange for the governor pardoning you?
Well, I wouldn't use the word threatened. That to me, that's a little bit abrasive and strong. Sounds very strong-armed. But I think, like I said before, I think negotiations, I think it's the right thing to do for Governor Polis to pardon me. You know,
but what about the withholding of funds part?
If there's funds that are for programs that the governor wants, but the president doesn't feel like, or his staff doesn't feel like are necessary, there may be some a give or take there.
Peters continued to promote Trump's negotiating ability.
President Trump is known for his negotiations. He's done it all over the world.
The Trump Justice Department says it's going to investigate Peters' prosecution for abuses of the criminal justice process. The DOJ filed a statement of interest, attempting to get involved in her appeal. Democrat Attorney General and candidate for governor Phil Weiser urged a federal court to reject the DOJ statement of interest, calling it a grotesque attempt to weaponize the rule of law. Democrat Senator Michael Bennet, who was reportedly considering a run for governor too, says he also wouldn't cut a deal to release Peters.
I think that is a terrible way for a democracy to operate.
But what about the current governor? No. Polis's office says, quote, quid pro quo or blackmail is not the way our system of laws work. Adding, quote, it's repugnant to demand to withhold taxpayer money in exchange for a political favor.
She sort of laid that Doge type of groundwork of saying there's ways to somehow justify the president strong-arming the governor into this, but she did stop short of demanding her unconditional release like some of her supporters have asked for online.
We wait and we see. Spencer Soisher, thank you. An inclusive playground being built in Jefferson County will be bigger and better thanks to your generosity. The Shelton Elementary community in Golden raised enough money for the basic playground build. That'll start this summer. And then your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign raised another, hold on, $65,000 to add even more equipment, even more paved spaces where kids with different physical and sensory abilities can play together. Your microgiving campaigns through 249 weeks of giving have brought in $14.5 million for nonprofits in every corner of our state. So I want to hear about the nonprofit projects in your community. What are your neighbors working on? How can we help? If the finances check out, the leadership is strong, and there's a solid plan to use our donations well, they could be featured on this program in the future. Email ideas to us at next@9news.com or text NEXT 303-871-1491. Those iconic orange Flight for Life helicopters are about to get a radical new paint job. That is not sitting well with folks.
so cool to see other people from other places and where they come from and their story that they bring.
And I think this is why they call it March Madness. Colorado's best young poets take the stage. Next. For generations, the sight of an iconic orange Flight for Life helicopter overhead has caused Coloradans to send up a thought or a prayer for whoever was on board. That orange chopper touching down in a mountain valley or a town on the plains meant that whoever was in trouble had a better chance to live. So you can understand the attachment that some have to that symbol of life in Colorado, and you can understand the frustration some felt when they found out today that a Chicago-based healthcare company is repainting those choppers pink to match their marketing. Flight for Life Colorado became America's first civilian air ambulance service in 1972. It takes critically ill patients all over the Rocky Mountain West in its helicopters and planes. Flight for Life began at St. Anthony Hospital, offering pilots and nurses returning from Vietnam a new way to serve. And those distinctive orange helicopters became their best-known trademark. Rumors of a color change back in 2022 did not go over well.
We wanted orange.
That Flight for Life orange has stood out against the blue Colorado sky for 50 years.
People that get sick, it doesn't matter what it is. They want to see that orange helicopter coming in.
Well, today, Common Spirit, which now owns St. Anthony, announced that Flight for Life will be repainted pink to, quote, align with the Common Spirit brand. Comments came in quickly on Flight for Life's social media. Shame on Common Spirit, wrote one person, not a fan of the corporate decision. That money would be better spent paying our healthcare providers more. Others wrote in, said they're worried about decreased visibility and increased danger to pilots, crew, and patients in the high country. Flight for Life is supported by donations from the public to the St. Ace Health Foundation. That includes through a custom license plate program. You can get a vanity plate in Colorado with the iconic Flight for Life orange. You get it in return for a donation. When I reached out to St. Ace Foundation to ask about their changes, their chief philanthropy officer hung up on me. Common Spirit said the rebranding would not be paid for with foundation funds, and they're still deciding what to do with those orange license plates. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi described today as inside of a hairdryer weather. Real warm, real windy. Kind of day that, of course, puts fire crews on alert when it doesn't take long for small fires to get big. Scary afternoon for people just west of Berthoud. Grass fire in that area of Dry Creek and Carter Lake grew to more than 30 acres before firefighters got it under control. The evacuation orders were lifted around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sheriff says one home was damaged, no one was hurt. Another fire popped up near the Jewel Wetlands Park in Aurora. That one burned about 2 acres and is fully under control. Another one popped up by the Blackstone Country Club. That one grew to about 3 acres before crews knocked it down. The cause of those fires is under investigation. Let's turn to meteorologist Kathy Sabin, and the potential for nasty fire weather here continues into the evening.
It does, and possibly tomorrow. The winds will return after a brief break tonight. We're tracking a storm system coming in that's created the wind with an extremely tight pressure gradient, but it's extremely dry as well. And then you factor in the warmth. Our high today now 74 in Denver, just missing the record of 76. 80 in southeastern Colorado in Lamar. Extremely gusty out of the west and southwest. We've had gusts to over 80 miles per hour in areas like southwest Boulder and over some of the higher passes. Winds come down tonight after sunset, returning tomorrow for a time. That's going to take a lot of moisture out of this incoming system. So red flag warnings remain in effect until 7 o'clock tonight, may be reinstated tomorrow. Current temperatures are still very mild, 65 in Denver, 70s in eastern Colorado. Seeing some beneficial moisture coming into the state, though. Radar picking up snow across the western half, where we'll go under winter weather advisories for up to a foot of snow from Steamboat, Aspen down to Telluride. It's out in the far eastern plains. I've got concerns for blowing snow and blizzard potential east of Lyman and Carville with a winter storm watch out there. Denver will clear out, see calmer winds tonight. Winds increase tomorrow, and the moisture decreases, unfortunately, but there's a chance. We have the chance of some scattered light rain and snow showers here. We're kind of in between the accumulating snow in the mountains and the wind and snow off to the east, but it will be a cooler day with more moisture in the atmosphere, and that just benefits everybody. Temperatures slide a bit after sunset, as you might imagine. Your 7-day potential weather impact tomorrow due to the incoming storm, the wind, the rain, the snow. We clear out Wednesday, and then we're 50s and 60s for the end of the week, right into the weekend, with a mix of clouds and sunshine from Wednesday to Sunday.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Young poets compete in Denver today. We'll introduce them to you. Hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night, 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is now a podcast each weeknight, wherever you get your podcasts. A poetry competition for high schoolers is a chance for them to flex their words and shake off the nerves that can come with an audience. And there are scholarships and prizes on the line. Our Byron Reed stopped by.
Icy fields. Is water flowing in the tank?
Poetry is more than words.
Poetry is an art form and a communicative art form.
Well, the eagle claws holes in your pockets.
For high schoolers Rise Simmons and Lisette Rodriguez, it's a chance to make a connection with their audience.
I think poems are reflections of authors, so like reflections of those people, but they can also be like relatable pieces for others as well.
It's just so cool to see other people from other places and where they come from and their story that they bring.
Each grief has its unique side.
Both Rise and Lisette are competing in the Poetry Out Loud Colorado State Finals, a program where 18 high school students from across the state take the stage and perform for their peers through poetry.
We all are winners from our school, and we got to go here all together and compete against each other.
The students are rated by a panel of judges, and the program encourages them to learn about poetry through memorization, performance, and competition.
Bringing together the words of our past poets, our present poets, and combining them with our students today.
Josh Blanchard is the director of Colorado Creative Industries. They're one of the partners hosting the competition that teaches more than poetry.
Students learn critical thinking, empathy, passion for the arts, and public speaking, which are all critical skills as students are thinking about their pathways into the workplace.
Being out there and putting yourself out there in such a beautiful, creative way is really moving.
For these aspiring poet laureates, the competition is showcasing their talents
And sings the tune.
and an opportunity to recite stanzas that their audience can relate to.
Another way I'm able to express myself, and when you're giving those poems, it's a very open space, a very safe space.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
Marilyn, you ever write poetry? No, nope, neither me. Terrible meter, horrendous meter. Thank you for the feedback, which we will have for you next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is an appropriate way to measure the wind in a dog-obsessed state. Tony in Littleton sent us a shot of his dog, Finn, out in it today. That dog is fighting for its life in the wind. Well-groomed, though, well-groomed. If you see something that feels like Colorado to you, email it to us, next@9news.com, or text next at 303-871-1491. This via text during the program. So to be clear, Tina Peters, a convicted felon, this person writes, wants to extort a pardon at the expense of all Coloradans. This is the idea that the Trump administration would withhold federal funding from Colorado until the governor pardons Peters. Interestingly, in her interview with Spencer Soisher, she seemed a lot less intense on this quid pro quo than a lot of her supporters are. She wants to get out for sure, but I don't hear her demanding that bargain the way some others are. Another text, I like the green jacket. Plaid's back in style. Thanks for continuing to upset Republicans and Democrats by reporting the truth. Back tomorrow for more of that, a different color.